Hello everyone, it is lovely to see you. My name is Janine McGowan and I design cross stitch as the blue flower. This is Flosstube number 130, which is hard to imagine, and it's been a while. It's been a month since the last time we did this. As I mentioned in the newsletter, we had our whole family caught the plague, which was just a bad cold, but it caught all of us in a row, and it was one of those where first you get so exhausted that walking from one room to another, you think, it would be nice if I just lay down on the floor to sleep for a while. And then when you're done with that, it takes a long time for the cough to go away. So I didn't do the last video because every time I talked, I wanted to cough. And then last weekend, I didn't do it because I was off at the Barefoot Needleart having a lovely time. So it's been a month, but it is wonderful to be back with you. Now, it is Friday evening, so we'll see if I can get through this one without yawning. I was joking with someone about that, and they said since I was filming at night, maybe I wouldn't yawn, and of course I did, but I think it's maybe a nerves thing too. So I've already had a couple goes on this one, so maybe I got my yawns out of the way. We'll see. Fingers crossed. Jumping right into stitching in action. First up, we have Rabbit Parade stitched by Heidi, and she used 20 count Grandpa's Jeans fabric by DigiStitchers, which is not someone I've used before, so that was fun to see. And then she finished it with a wooden egg shape from Target, which I think is just perfect for this. As it fit perfectly, it came out beautifully, so thank you so much, Heidi, for sharing that. Next up, we have Winterwood's Biscornu, and this was from the Jingle Ball class last Christmas. This was stitched by Sherry. I love the snowflake button she put on the top, and then she put that little bit of ribbon around, and then she added underneath a tatted snowflake, which I think looks lovely, so beautiful. And she stitched her name and her date, the date of the stitching on the base as well. So perfect finish. Thank you so much, Sherry, for sharing that with us. Then we have Kira, who has 3 finishes to share, and I actually had the pleasure of meeting Kira at the Barefoot Needleart retreat, so I got to see her finishes in person. First up, we have 2 of the little free squirrels, and she had sent through these little round finishes that she'd done before now, but now she has found just the perfect sign to put them on, so I love it. It's just right. And then Seasons of the Heart Autumn, she has finished, and she's mounted it on, I can't tell if it's an apple or a pumpkin shape in the background, but it's got the seasonal leaves and the ribbon, and it just looks wonderful. And then she finished a little sand dollar pincushion, and this was what I taught in the Barefoot Needleart class, because you may have seen the design was a sandy short, was that muffin shape, and so in the class they had 2 options of a little pincushion. One was a sand dollar and one was a starfish, and it's exactly the same finishing technique, so that gave them something small to practice on. And she did the sand dollar, and I just love it. I love the way it came out. So there's the yawn. Thank you so much, Kira, for sharing that, and it was lovely to meet you. On to what I'm stitching. I had to do quite a bit of flying to get to the BNA class. It's one of the hazards of living in an area with a small airport and going to an area with a small airport. You get a lot of flights. So I made a lot of progress with the Dunkel Memorial Sampler, which is the beehive sampler from Moira Blackburn. And so far I'm just working on the border, which has been a lot of fun. And I'm just changing the colors as I go along. I think I will do all of the border first, and then once I get to the center, that's where the real personalization will start. So far, the only personalization I'm doing is changing colors, but I'm just working on that border. It really does have to meet up perfectly. So I'm going to get that all knocked out and do all of those flowers around the edge, and then I'll get to the center. On to Stash Spotlight. You can't see it, but there is so much fabric on my desk right now. I have fabric from Market. I have fabric from Barefoot Needleart. I have some amazing fabric that I just received in the mail that I will show probably in the next video. But while I was at Barefoot Needleart, I took the opportunity to get some of their lovely fabric. And I had actually tried to get some at Market, but they were always busy when I went by their booth. So I got more than this, but I'm going to show a couple. I've got some on-theme ones since I was at the beach. And what a treat it was, let me tell you. When I left Reno, it was 25 degrees. I had to put all the frost covers on the garden plants. And then I took my flights, got over to the coast, and it was lovely. Got to put my toes in the sand. I got to look at the ocean and pick up some beautiful fabrics, including, here we have Sand Dollar. It's always tricky to show the colors, but we'll do our best here. This is a lovely sort of pinky neutral. And then we have Sandy Toes, which obviously I approve of. Again, this one's a little bit more pink. And then we have Scallop Shell, which is really interesting because it's got these yellows and taupes and just a really fun color to look at. And then this one was for me. This one's called Desert Night. But I do love, and you can see a little bit of it, it's got a lot of brown and purple in it. It's not just a stark black. So I'll have to come up with something fun to use for that. So that's a little bit of the fabric that I got while I was out there. And always a treat for me since I don't have a local shop to stock up on fabric when I'm traveling. On to the world around, and again I took inspiration from my recent trip. I thought I would learn about sand dollars. I was given the wonderful opportunity to stay at a hotel right on the beach, and so I got to go down in the mornings and after the class and walk on the beach and look for shells and things. I told them that's what I was going to do, and they said, if you see a sand dollar, make sure you put it back. And I thought, I've never seen a live sand dollar. I don't even know what they look like. So I thought I would learn. And I have learned that they are echinoderms, relatives of sea urchins and sea stars. They live on the sea floor and they use tiny spines and hairs to move across the ground to reach food. Now, what I generally think of as a sand dollar is actually just their exoskeleton. So it's like the equivalent of a beetle shell that's left after they die. A live sand dollar is covered with these tiny spines and comes in this range of colors, browns, purples, but it looks fluffy. I had no idea. I've never seen it. So that was really interesting to me. All those little hairs and spines help it move, also help move food into its mouth, which is on the underside. So since they live on the sea floor, the mouth underneath is they can shove food into that mouth with those little hairs, and the mouth is just going along. They're sort of quasi-filter feeders, I guess. Not exactly, but that mouth has apparently 5 sections where they chew their food. They can spend 15 minutes chewing a piece of food and up to 2 days digesting that piece of food. But they can also use those little hairs and spines to hold food as a snack for later. If the water is calm, they will feed by standing up in the sand with their mouth, I guess, oriented towards the direction of the current so they can filter the food. If it's rough water, they will anchor themselves by laying flat down. And they can even eat sand particles to give themselves a little more weight, or grow a thicker exoskeleton to give themselves a little more weight, which I thought was quite cool. They live 6 to 10 years. I had no idea. And you can apparently calculate their age by counting the growth rings on those exoskeletons, much like counting the rings on a tree. Who knew? That petal design on the top is actually a set of holes that they use to breathe, and then those larger holes around the outside equalize pressure and let the water kind of wash through so that they aren't just washed away. They can't survive out of water, so if they do get washed up onto the shore, and that's the reason people were telling me you have to put them back in. So if it's very rough seas, they might get washed up. They'll be trying very hard to get back into the water, and you need to put them back in right away if you find them. They're not exactly social, but they tend to congregate in groups, possibly because they reproduce by broadcasting eggs and sperm into the water, and so the more of them together, the better their success rates. Possibly because if there is a predator, their odds are a little bit better when they're in a group. They don't have many predators because they have that big exoskeleton and not too much to eat apart from that, but there are a few, and their primary defense there is to bury themselves in the sand. And then when they die, the spines fall off and eventually only that exoskeleton remains to be washed up on the beach and bleached by the sun. So if you see that white sand dollar that you're familiar with, as I am, now you know a little bit more about how it started out. So that was really fun for me to learn. I hope you enjoyed it too. On to questions. Last video, the question was your favorite spring food, and I said for me it's strawberries. I have been fighting a battle this year. I think the quail have discovered my garden, and they have eaten so far 3 strawberry plants. They've just been eating the leaves, and I'm torn because I do want the garden to feed everybody, including the quail, and usually, most times of year, there's plenty. There's plenty for them to take some leaves, but right now, while things are starting, boy, they can take some plants down fast. So I actually got some bird netting at the garden center this week, so we may have to kind of cordon some things off until they can get going enough to make headway against the quail, and hopefully we'll still get some strawberries this year. On to question this video. Have you seen a bird this week? And the reason I ask this is because the time of year that we're just wrapping up, I joke about as an accountant, it's the busiest season for me, for my regular job and for the designing job with Market. But it was a lot busier when I used to work in public accounting. And I think back to those days, I would get up in the dark and drive to work, and I would work all day in an office, and then I would get home in the dark, and I would never get to enjoy anything in nature at all. It just work all the time this time of year. And so I was just wondering, now I'm very fortunate. I work at home. I get to see birds all the time. I get to see animals. I get to see the sky. I get to, touch grass. I can go out and I can look at a flower in the garden, or I can walk the dogs and take a minute and take a deep breath. So I was just wondering, as an example, have you seen a bird in the past week? And just using that as kind of an opportunity to say, hey, have you had a chance to appreciate some nature over the past week and enjoy that? I hope you have. On to best things. I had 2 retreat pieces, and again, these were in the newsletter, but one for a retreat I didn't attend in person. This was the Library Stitchers, and this is available still at the Crafty Grimalkin for the next year. All that information's in the newsletter, but they had asked me for a Seasons of the Heart Maine, and it was so much fun to do. I loved it. I loved every minute of it. I would love to go to Maine someday and see some of these things in person, but in the meantime, at least I got to design for it, so that was a lot of fun. And then the other was the Sandy Shore piece, inspired by the beautiful coastline of South Carolina where I was. And going to Barefoot Needleart was such a treat. I got to meet a lovely group of stitchers and really enjoy spending some time with them. And if you would like to get this piece again for the next year, it will be available at Barefoot Needleart until I release it generally. Both of those will come out in probably Market next year. And so until then, you can reach them from their respective shops and get those there. So those are my best things. On to giveaway. Now, I have to say, I did an absolutely terrible job responding to comments from the last video, even though I've had weeks and weeks. I read them all as they came through, but when we were all sick, boy, I was useless. And then I was away, and then it was a big rush. So like I said, I read them all, but I apologize. I did a lousy job of responding, so that's on me. But I did pull a winner. So the giveaway from the last video was this lovely kit. Tussie Mussie little pincushion for what could be lavender. I like to think it's lavender. And if you use the word flower, you were entered. The winner is at Haley Bryant 8669. So Haley, drop me an email with your mailing address and I will send that on to you. On to give away this video. Again, courtesy of Sampler Guild of the Rockies. This is a really good one. I mean, they're all good, but this is especially good. All right, this is from Plum Street Samplers. This is the piece that Paulette designed for that retreat, and it is called A Crown of Wisdom. Isn't that pretty? Classic Paulette style, don't you love it? And this is the full kit with all of the threads, the overdyes, the DMC. There's a little set of thread drops. I never do those when I do a kit. Maybe I should start. I think it'd be kind of fun. But you get the whole set, and if you use the word crown in your comments, which I will respond to this time now that I'm back to health and I can talk without coughing, we'll pick a winner for the next video. On to announcements. It was Rye's birthday yesterday, and she is 6 years old now. It's hard to believe it's been 6 years. It also means it's been 6 years that I've been doing these videos, and you've been kind enough to join me. So, as is traditional, the puppy video at the end of this is going to be a collection of Rye's greatest hits, because I like to do that on her birthday and kind of look back to where we've been. So that's it for me. It's about to kick off the weekend. I hope you have a lovely weekend. And if you haven't seen a bird yet this week, I hope you get an opportunity. If you're near the beach, perhaps you will get to see a sand dollar. And wherever you are, I hope you get some stitching in. Thank you so much for joining me, and I look forward to chatting with you again in a couple of weeks.